Namaste, beautiful yogis. Welcome to Alika Nova Yoga. And today I wanted to start part one with the discussion about hormones, menopause, perimenopause, PMS, and all those things that are related to um, mostly the female um, shifts and changes, transitions in life. It does apply to men, but it's a little bit different with the male transition. The male transition, even though there is a non-andropause, it's way longer and more smooth. So it is a little bit different. Anyways, I consider this part one kind of in introductory video to the subject because I'll just talk about certain less talked about aspects of menopause, and then I may go into some details in part two. Now, with perimenopause, there is a lot of talk, and I've tried to wrap my head around the different opinions on the subject so that I can have a broader view. I, as you know, lean more towards the not even holistic, but it's a very broad view approach. So I like to see the consciousness evolution through every challenge and change in life. And when we speak of challenge, I'm gonna kind of open a little discussion here in a second. But with the transitions in life, we have to understand the hidden value of them. I think that is the less talked about part about it. When you look about menopause right now, there is a lot of talk about HRT, a lot of talk about diet, and of course exercise. And exercise would be one of my biggest discussions in this type of subject. But I think we have to start with the consciousness and with the evolution of the person, the personal evolution, the reason behind changes. So let's go into more about the menopause subject. I think every PMS is like a mini shift. We experience that mini shift, mini build up and release, kind of a mini cycle, a mini transition, and it is an emotional transition as well. And when we have built up all these mini cycles, then there is the big transition. Now the big transition is said to be to start somewhere in the early 40s, even late 30s, all the way into the late 40s, and around 50 maybe. So it is a long process. It can take up to 10 years, it can be 7 years of a transition, starting somewhere in the 40s typically, and on average there's differences in depending on lifestyle, personal situation. But anyways, without going into those details that are easy to find, I think the most important takeaway is that the reason why we go into those changes, it's for the evolution of the soul, the personal journey. Our journey puts us on a path where we are faced with things that expand us, so to speak. So I'm just about to go to the pool and we're at my favorite place where I do feel renewed, as if I can't explain it to you. It's a mineral hot spring geothermal resort with really powerful water, and I do a soak in the morning, and then pool and sun and all of that, and we're just leaving. Lori is waiting for me, but I wanted to open up this video because I've been planning to, and every day is just this quick, the days goes by so fast. Anyways, I'll get to without too much beating around the bush. I'll get to the point. When we go through menopause, we are meant to become someone else. This is a transition that is meant to shed our old body and create our new version. That's why in most archetypes you will have the crone as an archetype. If we don't go through menopause, we will never have the crone archetype. The crone archetype has a very particular function in society. Society is almost not going to happen in the way we know it without the crone archetype, which is the grandma, the old woman, maybe the healer, maybe the wise woman. Hopefully that's where we all want to end up. But because the transition is so rough, it may take out a lot of people who opt out of that transition. They either medicate too much, suppress too much, avoid facing the subconscious too much. So it is possible to really delay or suppress or avoid that transformation. Totally possible. We're all very afraid of aging, and we all feel that we somehow are failing if we become someone else, if we age, if we become old. And that type of thinking already puts us in a particular psychic space that makes us feel that something is wrong with what's happening, right? Once we think this is wrong, I feel that the symptomology of menopause become terrible. We're in a society that values youth, and lately I feel like our generation and our mother's generation have had way worse menopause than the generations of our great-grandparents, maybe even grandparents. Definitely my grandparents, definitely my great-grandparents, and way beyond, because they fulfill their biological purpose by having children. Usually having children can help, especially late children, can help with the shifting hormones to be a little less of a shift, less of a drop. And because in society, I think it was less, the pursuit of youth was a little bit less. Everybody values youth. I think in all societies, everybody grieves the loss of youth, for sure. Because, for example, the Bulgarian folklore is all about the grief of losing the youth. So it's not a new phenomenon. It's just how we deal with it. Now, how we process information is all about it. It's not what happens to us, but how we perceive it is where it is at. So for German New Medicine, if we think something wrong is happening with us, we're failing, oh man, menopause, we're becoming useless, that's the end of ends, right? The end of everything. Then I do believe that symptomology, the symptoms will be harder because it creates inner stress. The inner stress creates stress responses, the hormones that makes everything, it becomes a snowball effect. And that's why the first step, I believe, is to accept the body. Now, there is real physical symptoms that also can be addressed, but I think the mindset is really important. And for me, I personally experienced almost like the beginnings of hormone shifts, and I never felt anything, never felt close to menopause or any of that, even though my age kind of is that, but I was oblivious to it because when you have no symptoms, you don't feel that it's close. Up until I was under prolonged stress for so long, because with moving is one of the most stressful events in a person's life, especially when you're a little older, with a lot of moving parts, with a lot of things to move, a lot of things to navigate. When the move is prolonged, lots of early mornings, missed workouts, missed routines, missed home, etc. So without explaining it too much, but it was quite stressful. So as soon as we got to California, I experienced like 3 to 4 days earlier cycle, which is a symptom of a lower progesterone. And I've never had an earlier cycle or even later. It's been pretty consistent at about 31 days probably, to where it became like 20 something days. And that might be nothing for someone else, but knowing my body, right? So I had to personally, first of all, at first just kind of wait it out. And second, I had to personally, for me, the most important part was to address the stress level. And from there, I felt a massive shift. So I always think the mind is the most important thing to address, because the mind creates, It's a participant and a foundational participant in creating the physical symptoms. Movement is an important part, and I have gone into really beautiful, amazing classes that will, like the Pilates program, would definitely balance the hormones, because it works energetically on that second, first chakra, third chakra. We work on everything, but that area, so to speak, chakra, if you don't like that reference, because those are the chakras are the energy vortexes of the fascia. That is something that kind of in the recent years I started realizing, that the fascia runs physically where the Chinese outlined the meridians, right? So the meridians are this energy, like electric wires, and when you address one acupuncture point, energy runs through that meridian and goes into the organs, into the corresponding tissues. So the chakras also represent again, in some relation, the constellations of electric energy in the body. Anyways, so we're working on these organs that where the glands reside. I think the organs precede in many ways the glands. So when people talk about hormones, I think we kind of think that hormones run the show, but we don't understand that how the hormones are produced comes from the psyche and the organs. The organs are ran by the muscles and the fascia, so it comes back to movement. So movement is a very important aspect of maintaining the organs, and from there the hormones. If the organs function, and we pay attention to how we perceive reality. So stress is very important in order to live. Everybody, everything in nature needs to experience stress. So stress in itself is not wrong. Like as a gardener, they tell you to put fence on your sprouts so that they experience the stress of a wind, otherwise they'll be too weak. So we can understand that through stress, we become stronger. Actually, it's not stress in itself that causes us harm, it's how we perceive stress, how we mind our own mind. I have spent, that was another symptom I had a lower resilience to stress. So those two things, a little earlier period, and that to me showed me that there is a shift of hormones after prolonged stress. I didn't have as much time to myself to really do longer classes, or it was just quite chaotic and not a lot of personal space at all. So, and those are things I really require. Anyways, I do believe that all those experiences are for a reason, and for a learning experience, and for we really enrich ourselves when we just face a different phase in life that is a little different. Anyway, so I was able to use flower essences. To me, they're my kind of first line of defense, because I have had such profound experience with certain ones of them, not all. Just for every condition you have that is kind of a spiritual condition, there is one or two. Lodi is waiting. Okay, almost done. There is one or two. There is one or two essences that will correspond to your particular take on that condition. It's how you react to stress, to fear, etc. Anyway, so that was one thing for me, is to change how I process reality. Another was to work with the land, to put myself in action, and movement. So movement, fluid movement, fascia, work on the fascia through movement. The balancing classes that I'm doing, the Pilates, they are extremely powerful in balancing hormones. Okay, in part 2, I'm gonna probably touch up a little more movement, herbs, progesterone, bioidentical progesterone, which I do recommend John Lee's book, because he was the one that originally spoke against the hormone therapy at the time, like 20-30 years ago, which was from pregnant mares. urine, and that is that can create a lot of side effects in women. Now, there is bioavailable hormones from yam and soy that in certain situations are amazing. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the herbs and the other things in relation to hormones. But I do believe that we shouldn't think of hormones as they want to convince, like the narrative now is you fall over and die without HRT, and I believe that everything has its place, but we shouldn't have this approach of hormones rule everything. We should understand that hormones are the result of how the psyche processes realities, and then the health of the organs in regards to movement, diet, and thoughts. So per German New Medicine, I really love it. I don't feel the world is ready for like that kind of deep of mind thought, because it's so against the mainstream understanding of health and everything. But you have subconscious, conscious, and physical, and when things are brewing in the subconscious, stresses that you are not aware of, they affect the physical. When you bring them into the conscious, you create a feedback loop into the subconscious, and you change how you perceive it. So for example, with diet, if you think something is really bad for you, that can already create health problems. So even when you change your diet, it's not about not changing your diet, but it's about understanding that your body is okay even when you eat certain food that is like gluten or something. So when you change how your mind processes things, you bring it into the conscious heals or enlightens the subconscious. Now the subconscious begins to believe that everything is nourishing to you. You still can choose things that are consciously grown, consciously raised, etc. Whatever you're choosing to eat, you can still make very conscious choices, but don't believe that those things will harm you. And I feel like I process it okay, but sometimes I maybe shouldn't share it, because there's so many sprays on food, so many pesticides. It's just everything is just in bad quality. But at the same time, if you have to eat it, again, you charge it with gratitude, with acceptance, then invite a little more pure things into your life, and so forth. Everything has stages of resolving it. You move towards a better resolution, and at the time, whatever you are doing, you still take it in as a nourishing thought, nourishing water, nourishing food, etc. I am going to the pool, and I'll see you with part 2. I'll try to come back with this hormone discussion, but I wanted to start it. Please post in the comments your own thoughts about your own journey. A woman, another interesting person on the subject is Lisa Mosconi, Dr. Lisa, she's a scientist, brain scientist, and she studies the female brain during menopause, and she has some interesting things to say, but it seems like only the human female, the killer whale, some giraffes, some elephants, and the Japanese aphid, an insect, live after menopause, meaning there is a spiritual and biological reason for the human female to live half of her life past her reproductive years. And it's a profound reason. I think we're meant to become that. That is our most evolved form. So we should be all thankful and self-nourished through that period, so that we can really become that wiser, most evolved. If we're always in a reproductive stage, we can really express that deeper, richer side of ourselves, because we're always in the act of service, in the act of reproduction. Reproduction takes a lot of our brain cells, a lot of our desires and stuff are driven by it. So we're not as self-driven, self-contained, self-empowered. There is a level of depth that has to happen after that stage. And it's not to say that we're gonna like be expired for the physical stuff, no, but we're gonna be from the inside out more. I think that's part of the blessings, and we can also be of amazing service in that stage. So it's a beautiful stage, beautiful transition, real spiritual, profound journey. And I think that's the main thing to take from this. Instead of something wrong is happening, it's a symptomology, the body is broken, only medicine can fix it. There is a different approach. And then from that foundation, if you have to add Vitex or black cohosh or soy or progesterone cream, great, with gratitude, right? But you value that experience. All right, I'll see you with another part sometime in the future. Meanwhile, Pilates program still going on. It's absolutely, it's nourishing on a cellular level. I'll see you.